Okay, I think we are ready to start. Hello to everyone. My name is Margarita Krisaki, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the seventh webinar on education training in the space sector. For those who might be not familiar with our organization and our mission, Nereus stands for the Network of European Regions Using Space Technologies. We are a space organization exploring the advantages of space technologies for European regions and their citizens, and we also encourage the use of space and its applications. Usually I start with a presentation of Nereus that takes some minutes, but today's webinar is quite rich. We have many speakers, so I would dive directly to the topic of today's webinar. Our main subject is focused on the interdisciplinary character of space and its positive impact across other sectors, supporting job growth and development. Today we have a diverse panel of experts in several domains. To quote just a few, health, art, and artificial intelligence. And we will discuss how space can relate to these domains and what kind of interdisciplinary skills are required. Following the agenda of today, I would like first to welcome Ms. Novi Dewan. She is a digital health expert, and she will share with us concrete examples of space-based applications within and outside Europe to support health systems. The use of space data in the health sector is something new, and we would like to know more information from you, Novi. Please, the floor is yours. Can you hear us? You are muted. You are muted. Okay.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much, Margarita, for that introduction. Let's dive right in. So, digital health is space against time. I'm focusing on the overlap of healthcare with space. See, okay. So any technology, before we begin, any technology, whether it's digital or space, it needs to be an enabler in case it's trying to drive healthcare forward. So, and the credos that of healthcare that it should advance are basically accessibility, availability, equity, and timeliness. Now, for example, satellite communications can allow for remote access to telemedicine, for example, in areas which are in rivers, for example, we'll see an example of floating hospitals in Bangladesh or in Himalayas in India. Second example is equity. Any technology which is claiming to advance healthcare should also focus on communities which are otherwise getting penalized. So whether it's Aboriginal communities, whether it's marginalized communities, and we'll see some examples for that. And finally, timeliness. The best kind of healthcare would be that kind which would help prevent. Oh, do you hear me? I hear some echo. Would Margarita, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, I was muted. Please to everyone, mute yourselves. Only the speaker, we need to listen only to the speaker, and remove your cameras if you are not a speaker, so we can have a good connection. Thanks.
Perfect. And the final point is timeliness. So any kind of intervention which can help avoid or prevent avoidable disease or death is the kind that we're looking for here. So what's the overlap for space and healthcare? We'll see three options. One is space telemedicine, which means telemedicine for astronauts who are actually in space. Second is spin-offs. So these were inventions which were either intended for healthcare or for maybe discovery of scientific samples on the moon, but now they are being used for healthcare. And finally, space-based tech and infrastructure for healthcare on Earth. This means broadband satellites, VSAT satellites, which are highly secure, which allow for connectivity in regions where there is no internet access. Now, why space? Why do we think there's a big connection of space with healthcare? Because in space, this is what happens to our bodies. If you see on the left, for example, the brain, a lot of what happens is that a lot of the blood flows to the brain because we have less gravity, microgravity or zero gravity. And this can cause puffiness in the face. There's more likelihood of blood clots. So, yes, the astronauts are the toughest of the toughest, but there can be a lot of things that can happen to our bodies in space. And this is why, whether it's ESA, whether it's NASA, they have invested a lot in space medicine because these are long term missions for 6 months or more. Another example would be muscles. For example, your muscles can atrophy over time because, again, you don't have gravity, you don't have to walk much. Your heart can suffer because of the heart doesn't have to pump that much blood because there's no exercise, and again, there's no gravity. So this is what happens to the body. And on the right side, you see examples of not only is the body a constraint, even the usual instruments that work on Earth will be a constraint there. For example, you can't do CPR on space. Blood transfusion can be tricky in case there's a big accident because you can't even insert syringes in zero gravity. So you need to think in advance that, oh, I can only have astronauts with similar blood types. So this is what necessitates ingenious space telemedicine. And this is an example of an excellent device called Tempest Pro, which was developed by the European Astronaut Center in Cologne. And exactly for the reason we saw on the previous slide, it is used to assess and communicate the astronauts' conditions upon return to Earth. So on the left, you see the health checkup for Thomas Pesquet, and and on the right, you see a photo of how beautifully it was tested and validated at two Argentinian Antarctica bases in conditions which are analogous to the moon. Now we will see how the same device was loaned by the European Astronaut Center. This slide exactly talks about that, how it was loaned to Barcelona at the peak of COVID in March or April 2020. So it was perfect because it has an iridium satellite, if you see in the bottom left, which allowed for communication. Doctors were protected because they didn't have to be in the van. They were van agnostic in the sense they didn't have to be attached to one particular van where this emergency ambulance, where it was deployed. They could be associated with multiple vans. So this is how space has directly helped in telemedicine on Earth. Um, Now, just taking a step back, why do you think that telemedicine, we just saw that what happens to the human body, but space is the perfect microcosm to test limits of telemedicine because first reason, these are long-term deep space missions. Over time, people are also going to go to Mars, astronauts are going to go to Mars, and the communication lag time to Mars is 20 minutes, which means you cannot have online teleconsultation. There's AI, live AI is not possible. The second complication is the mission team is tight. What this means is there's not always doctors and paramedics on board. So what we'll see the solution to this, but the key solution is that the astronauts themselves have to be trained on some basic skills of how to resuscitate fellow astronauts, for example. And there's also an upper limit to equipment space. For example, you cannot have a big MRI machine on board. So what's the solution? One solution is, of course, proxy measures. Proxy measures like, yes, I cannot have an MRI on board, but can I have a device which acts like which is good enough to diagnose my condition and therefore treat the astronauts? So there you have proxy measures, frugal innovation, and this is cross-fertilizing from Earth because in Earth, in India, for example, there's a company which has devised diagnosing eye disease with an offline AI. So this can be deployed in space. And of course, the other way to eliminate the disadvantages of a long-term deep space mission in space is a mission profile. So they have to come up with, okay, these are 7 astronauts, this is their likelihood disease propensity, this is the mission duration, and this is the simulated risk management. Um, and I'll quickly go through this, but the main purpose of sharing the slide is to tell you that there was a case where an astronaut detected his own blood clot in space using an ultrasound, which is again a proxy device. It's not the exact device that you would use to detect a blood clot, but it was good enough. And the way he diagnosed it was that he was just doing a routine examination in space at the International Space Station to see how body fluid is redistributed in zero gravity. And all 11 astronauts were supposed to do it, and they figured out that he had a blood clot. So the treatment was perfect. It was from Earth. They had some blood thinners in the International Space Station. For the first 40 days, he was rationed that. And on day 43, cargo resupply spacecraft came to give additional medicines to continue his treatment. Um, so now to come to the skills part, we're trying to focus on how this is helpful for interdisciplinary skills. Now imagine here they didn't need just rocket science. The other skills that were helpful were space medicine, biomedical engineering, supply management, because they had to ration the supply, innovation, entrepreneurship, even project management. For over 90 days, they had to manage this from Earth. So even somebody who was in project management could try to learn interdisciplinary skills and try to get into space, for example. Point two, I spoke about space spin-offs, which are used for health. This is a beautiful system. It's developed by ESA, and it was an embedded biomedical sensors which were used in spacesuits. And eventually, it's been used for warning parents and baby monitoring systems against infant cot death syndrome. Again, the interdisciplinary skills here, you don't just need space skills, but maybe human anatomy in space, because biomedical sensors, healthcare, entrepreneurship, biomedical engineering. Another example of a spin-off for health in space. Oh, this is beautiful. It's one of my favorite examples. It's an ESA developed 3D camera, and it was used for discovering samples in the moon. And then it was adapted by an innovation company called 3D Oscopy, which created this pill endoscopy camera, which is just a little capsule. It can be swallowed and disposed instead of the usual endoscopy, which is very invasive, and the doctors have to monitor in real time. In this case, the doctors can monitor later in digital. So it has speed advantages, cost advantages, quality advantages. And this is a beautiful example of how space spin-off has helped Earth. And again, you see the skills which are interdisciplinary. You can even have AI and machine learning skills, which sort of automatically diagnose based on these criteria, this is the likely reason for gastrointestinal bleeding, for example.
Novi, a few seconds to close your presentation.
Okay.
Your very interesting presentation.
Not at all. This is a NASA example, which was Finder, which was developed together with Department of Homeland Security. And it is used to find people trapped under layers of rubble. It was used in Haiti, in Philippines, Mexico, all during earthquakes. And the way it does it is by using microwave radar to detect heartbeats. Another spin-off, well, let's just go back to this. This is from the James Webb Telescope, and the curvature of the mirrors of the James Webb Telescope has been spun off and has been used in an eye laser system by Johnson & Johnson, and it's already in 47 countries, and 18 million procedures have been done. Because of the precision, the laser surgery success is 100%. And again, you see an example of spin-offs. And one last example, and then we close the presentation. This is an example, again, close to my heart, because it's a collaboration between public, SES satellites, private, which was a company in Bangladesh, and NGO, which is Friendship NGO. It's a partnership. And what they did was SES Satellites of Luxembourg provided 3 maritime VSAT satellites and installed this in floating hospitals in Bangladesh. And now marginalized communities there get treated by doctors in Europe. So with that, I close my presentation, Rita.
Thank you very much, Novi. Indeed, we couldn't imagine in so many ways how space data can contribute to the health sector. It's quite fascinating, I would say. I would have a question from my side, a bit more personal actually, but it might help the students that they join our webinar. What was the moment for you when you realized as an expert that the use of space data and so on, would be an additional, a valuable tool for your search as a health expert? Maybe you can also stop sharing so we can see you better.
Absolutely. Yeah, Margarita, that's a fantastic question. Actually, for me, it was literally the ESA's Copernicus program.
Mm-hmm.
And the Copernicus program is a perfect chance to say a few words about it. It is basically the sentinels which are deployed by ESA into space are used literally for Earth, whether it's climate change, whether it's deforestation, whether it's disaster management, and and it is a very rich data set. They're even considering having an AI chip on board, so onto the satellite itself. And this is what excited me and came as a connection to me because my PhD is in health and humanitarian logistics. So you can actually use uh, drone data together with in situ data, together with satellite data, and have very precise ways of how to improve agriculture, how to rescue people in crisis.
Thank you very much, Novi, for your insightful presentation. Please stay with us for the discussion. And then we go to a completely different field of activities. Our next speaker represents the sector, the field of arts. We are honored to have in our panel as well Miss Annie-Laure Banon. She is a French sculptress and she is a future-orientated artist. I had the chance to meet her last year in the conference on space sustainability in Milan, and I was fascinated by her art and science project called Vite Project. This is a permanent installation of the sculpture that will take place on the moon. I will leave the rest for you, Annie-Laure. I will share your presentation and you can
You-
explain this fantastic project.
Thank you. Do you hear me? Is it everything?
Yes, and we
Oh,
can see you, and we
oh,
can see
everything is
you.
fine. So maybe I
Everything,
can.
everything is fine. I will just give me a few seconds to open the presentation, and let me know when it's the time to share the video, so I know the.
Okay, okay. So thank you. I'm very happy to be with all of you, and it sounds so exciting and interesting. So I'm on the artistic side, and as you just said, Margarita, I'm a sculptor, and I work very closely with a scientist to give me more freedom, in fact, and so I can absolutely have all my creativity totally free that way. And maybe we can start. I don't know if I can. Maybe you can start
I share the presentation.
the presentation. So, okay, so if we go
Let
to
me know when I can change the slide.
okay, maybe you can. So it's called Vitae.
Mhm.
It's called Vitae project because it's about life. And all started because you could see in the next slide because I was very shocked by a sentence that I just found out a long time ago with Einstein, saying that art and science are the most efficient messenger for peace. So from now on, that was like maybe 20 years ago, I started to try to mix those two disciplines, and I'm so happy I did. Maybe we can go to the next one, and I tell you about the project. I don't see it. Okay. Because I don't see. I'm sorry because I'm on both. I'm two screens, so to make sure that it works, and I don't see what you're showing, but that's okay. I guess I'm there on the
I follow
USA.
your instructions. When you tell me on the next, I'm on the next.
Okay, but I don't have. I'm sorry, I don't have the screen,
No
so I don't
problem,
see.
no
Oh, I
problem.
see it. I see it. So you see how it looks like. It looks, in fact, it's an animated work of art. In a sense that it's like a cocoon during the day, closed as a cocoon. It opens at night and deploys the whole humanity inside of it. But I wanted really this is a journey that we all sharing. This is the whole spirit of Vitae, is to show that we are one planet, and we are all together in this fun, fantastic odyssey. So I'm collecting 1 million handprints around the world that are like a Lascaux, a modern Lascaux, let's say, and everybody, gives me the handprints. Schools, you will see later in the presentation, and they all in the sculpture, engraved in it. So we can go to the next one. And of course, my artwork is in tons normally. I do monumental art. I work in steel, with steel and very heavy material. And the first people that told me about the moon told me, okay, you are in tons and we're in gram. So we have to find something in between. So that was really interesting because it was a new challenge. So here you can see a group of fantastic experts, scientists, engineers, astrophysicists working with me from the beginning 8 years ago on this project. So we identified the proper material that could respect my creativity, the opening and closing of the sculpture, the lightweight. So we're working with we can maybe see it in the next one. We're working in nitinol, which is a nickel and titanium shape memory alloy that reacts only to the heat on the moon. We are using what could be a constraint into an advantage, into an opportunity. So the sculpture open and close without any mechanism. It's green, you see. And we had 3 big challenges. The thermal challenge, because we go from, as you all know much better than I do, but we go to extreme temperature, more than 150 during the day, and at the opposite, minus 150 at night, and where we're supposed to put the sculpture. So we had to work on that. We had to work on the optical aspect because I wanted to keep a link. All this is about connecting people. So I was very concerned about keeping a link at the end with the sculptures. So there is a beacon that we can at certain time beep so that we can be connected in a certain part of the country, of the planet. And the last one was the mechanical, and I told you it was a nitinol. So all those studies have been done with Dassault Systèmes, and it took 3 years and a lot of fantastic engineers to work on this. And of course, all is under the direction of a space robotic expert that worked with Curiosity, Sean Whitehead, he's in London. And so we did all of that, and then we had to test. We had to do more tests. So maybe on the next one, maybe before showing you that, Margherita, because all this is abstract, maybe
The video.
show you the video so that you
Yes.
get the whole aspect of it.
So let me know if you can listen to the video. It's this, right?
Yes.
It's okay? You can listen, right?
Okay, but maybe I can speak on it. It's fine. Yeah, because it's
Do you want me to mute the video and you
okay.
speak?
Yes. So
Okay.
absolutely.
Yes, I do
So
that.
This starts in my studio, because of course I draw as any artist everything before, so you can see what was the real first steps, drawing the hands, the people. Then of course this movie, this very fast video shows you what happened once we've done all the studies. So that's how things are supposed to work. It's closed as an origami in the rocket, so that as soon as it touches the moon, it opens. It will be deposited with a rover, of course, and it opens with this special folding.
Wow.
All the hands, you can see here, the hands are there, several layers. Of course, 1 million handprints are numerized and smaller, of course. And then the heat makes make the sculpture work. You see, a cocoon during the day, what you see inside of it. For me, I call people because it's a symbol of the humanity. So I have all this long tige and with the heads, you see, and at night it opens, and the little beam starts like a heart, pumping at the top of the two biggest personage. So we tested aboard the International Space Station, and Thomas Pesquet did the experiment. It was another 3 years of work with NASA to be able to, because we had to heat in the International Space Station,
Yes.
of course, so that was another challenge. And so we did the opening. We were testing the opening and closing of the material in microgravity. So that worked, and we are still in the process of collecting so many handprints. I'm going into a lot of schools. Maybe at if we pass the video, we can go to the next slides. Thank you, Margarita, so much.
My pleasure, my great pleasure. Really, I think I'm on the moon now.
Okay, so you see, this is a moon box in my studio. Everything is not just simulation. It actually works. This is one of the first, what I call moon box in my studio. It's a heating cabinet, in fact, because on the moon we don't need it, but I had to heat. So if we can start this little one, you can see this little video. You can see that when we activate the temperature, maybe Margarita, you can just click on that one. It's a video too.
Okay, sorry.
And we can see that actually you see the temperature rise. That we've done many and many moon boxes. That's one of the first one, but you see that the material reacts perfectly to the heat. Of course, we're working only with 70 degrees, but we have one working with a much higher temperature. So you see, this actually does work, and the next one will maybe show you the collect. We started the whole hand collection at the CERN in Geneva. So that was another of the fantastic people that are helping me on that project, and we did it at Geneva. As you can see on the bottom, you can see the astrophysicist Jean Audouze and the head of the technical director of the program and the head of the CERN. Over there, we have in fact more to do, because since then we're working with the CERN regularly, and he is now the senior advisor of the project. So I'm very well, surrounded. Very proud of that. I'm very moved by all these people around us on that project. So maybe at the next one, I don't see. Okay, so with the first step we've done was at the edge of space. Before going to the International Space Station, we wanted to see, the edge of space, when you can see the Earth. So that was a very moving part of the steps, but really interesting. We learned a lot too. And after that, I think we are starting to see at the next slide. Okay, so that you saw in the movie. That was in 2017, and now there is one rover, Astrobotic, who is at Cap Canaveral waiting to be launched by Vulcan Centaur, and the Peregrine 1 mission, and we are aboard already of that first American rover that hopefully will land on the moon since the 69, and we had a little space in this one. So I sent as a lighthouse a parchment engraved. We did it at CERN also. It's engraved with all the story, art and science story of Vitae. I designed a case in which it's folded, and so this is already in the rover, waiting for launch. We hope in July, And now what is at the next slide will, after that, we can pass this one, because also we create a metaverse and of that, but that's not the topic of today. We can, so the 2 or 3 slides coming up are the collection of hands. You can see the diversity of people. We have all schools here. I'm going to a lot of school with astrophysicists to make them dream about daring, doing all their project, that everything is possible, and the science particularly will help them really go very high in their dreams. So here you can see the Nobel Prize, Mweke, in Amazonia, the cacique Kinawa. We have so many. The Nobel Prize of Physics is on the bottom, you know, and so there is this wonderful artist, football players, they all join us, and we still have room. So if you want, you can just go on the, of course, for free on internet and on the site, and we can you can add your hand to it. And this is Ban Ki-moon from UN. Who else? You know, football player, UNESCO. I mean, but more than anything, so many young people, and you know, coming up to our Odyssey. And so this gives you an idea. We are hoping now all the tests that are done. We're working with Nemesis, also a French company that is specialized in nitinol, which is interesting maybe for our conversation today. And that is that Nemesis originally was doing only medical with nitinol, with this product, with this material we're using. And now, after 5 years of working together and have done the International Space Station together, they are not expert. They are now moving to space, and they are space, how do you say, agreed. They have developed and a lot of product for in space, and that is their main activity now. So interesting, as art and science can really have together, hand in hand. We can change a little bit, even the scope of the people working with us. So that was really very exciting. So I don't know if how's the timing, because I want to be very short.
We need to close so we can engage you to the discussion.
Absolutely.
Anilor, thank you very much. Really, I have no words. I received a message that you are outstanding. Your work is outstanding. Thank you very much. And I had the privilege also to leave my handprint last year.
I'm happy to have you aboard. That's really nice. Yeah, really. That's
Thank
great.
you. Thank you very much, Anilor. One question from my side before I move on to the next speaker. Well, I have many questions, and I think the audience, they have as well. Just one of them, it would be really interesting for me. Do you see through through this exhibition, do you see an interest? Do you identify an interest from the younger generation to introduce STEM in their art?
Oh, absolutely. Not only that, I really see because I'm meeting so many young people, and first of all, you know, it's a time where they need to dream a little. I mean, we need that. It's a very special time in our planet, and we need to dream, but to dream, I want to say seriously, you know, with which help you fascinate your future. And through that, they see space differently, and I think that maybe in STEM we should add an A for art, you know, and
Yes,
it could be interesting.
STEM, as we said in the
STEM
in the conference.
Yeah, exactly. I love that very much, because there is now these links that are so strong, especially today. I really think.
Okay, thank you very much. Please stay with us. We have more
Sure.
questions for you. I would like to thank sincerely from my heart our first two space women, Novi and Anilor, for their great presentations. And then I would like to move on to the men of our panel today, Juan Pedro. He is the co-founder of EarthPulse, is a startup based in Barcelona, working in the intersection between artificial intelligence and Earth observation. Now we move on to a completely different sector, artificial intelligence. Pedro holds a PhD in aeronautical engineering and a Master of Science in Artificial Intelligence. Juan, everybody's very curious, worried, and excited about artificial intelligence. We hear a lot about this the last month, so we want to see with you what is the role of space, how space can play a significant role in this sector. The floor is yours.
Okay, great. Can you hear me and see the screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So I will try my best to answer all the questions that that you might have. So thank you very much for welcoming me to this webinar. You already introduced me, so it's not necessary to do it again. A few words about what we do at EarthPulse. Our mission is to democratize the use of satellite analytics. We were founded 3 years ago. We are 8 on the team and we are hiring. So if you feel that this topic can be interesting, please reach us to us. We are working on satellite analytics for decision making. And in order to do that in an easy way and also faster, we use artificial intelligence. So here's an example of the things that we do, because maybe it cannot be very clear. This is an example of flooding. We take the satellite image, our AI algorithms detect all the pixels in the image, let's say, that are affected by the floodings. And then we can put on top of that other kind of information, like the crops, the roads, the urban areas, and we can assess this impact in this case of a flooding. But we also work with vegetation, fire, and another kind of applications. Okay, so going to the main topic of the talk, what is artificial intelligence? In past talks that I gave like this, I had to spend a lot of time in this part, but since you mentioned nowadays, I think everyone is aware of artificial intelligence, what it is. Here's an example of what ChatGPT said about what is artificial intelligence, and 5 examples of it applied to the space sector. And the response was, artificial intelligence refers to the simulation of human intelligence processed by machines, especially computer systems and other things. Sorry. And 5 applications of that is satellite image analysis, which is exactly what we do and what we will talk about later. But also there are other applications of AI in space, like navigation and control, space exploration. So for example, for autonomous navigated spacecrafts, like the rovers and so on. For astrophysics and cosmology, so for processing all the data that comes from these big telescopes. Here, artificial intelligence can be very helpful for detecting new planets and so on, and space debris mitigation. But if you ask it for 10 examples, it would give you 10. So these are just the 5 that it came from. And even if nowadays people are most familiar with this kind of artificial intelligence, which is text generation, basically, you ask questions and you get responses. AI is also applied in another things, in a whole lot of other applications, like autonomous driving. It's used for detecting all the things that's happening around the car and then accelerate, brake, and so on. It's also used in social media for ranking purposes, like if you use Twitter, for example, the things that you see on your feed, that's produced by an AI algorithm. It's also used in the medical sector to help doctors in diagnosis, and it's even used also in games like CS:GO or even video games, achieving superhuman performance in some cases. So this is an overview of what is artificial intelligence. And the breakthroughs that we are living right now are mainly due to neural networks, which are a particular algorithm inside everything that is artificial intelligence. I will not go into details here, but the main idea is that neural networks or artificial neural networks try to mimic what biological neural networks do. And mathematically, it's very, very simple. We just have some inputs, we multiply them by some weights and aggregate using some kind of a function. So this is the very most basic form of a neural network, or a neuron, an artificial neuron. And here the trick is to put a lot of these artificial neurons, put them together in what we call neural networks. Okay, so we stack a bunch of them, we put a lot of layers, we connect them, and here you can see an example of an image. We feed the values of all the pixels of the image. We process this image using all these artificial neurons in the neural network, and then in the output, in this case, we have 10 of these neurons, and the one that gives a higher value is the one that we use to classify the image. So this is a particular example of a classification algorithm for images. But as you can imagine, if we want to apply these kind of algorithms for very big images or even videos, it would be very, very costly in terms of computational resources. So there are other architectures which have been developed during the years, which are more efficient. And here on the right, you have a couple of examples, and you can see this one is called the transformer, and it's today most used in most applications because it's giving the best results. And it is in fact the architecture that is used by GPT, which is the model powering ChatGPT. Okay, so this was a brief introduction to artificial intelligence, but I will talk about artificial intelligence in space sector, and in particular Earth observation, which is the thing that we are working on at EarthPulse. So here's some examples. You can imagine taking satellite images and building climate models, for example. And this can be very helpful for weather forecasting. Here on the right, you can see another example where we take these satellite images and we try to classify what is in every pixel of the image. This is an example of what I was mentioning before as well. So this is called land use classification or land cover classification, and we can know exactly the pixels of the image that corresponds to water, vegetation, buildings, whatever. Okay, so this is very powerful because previously we required a lot of EO experts to do this manually or using algorithms that would take a lot of time. And today, thanks to artificial intelligence, this is a process that can be mostly automated, and it's very, very fast. But it's not restricted to working with images. Here on the left, you can see an example of a study that we are doing right now. And it also can be applied to study correlation between time series and even forecasting, in this case, air quality, and also compared to the occupancy of the different houses. Okay, in this case in Barcelona. Okay, so what are the limitations and some future directions for artificial intelligence applied to Earth observation? Here it's important to keep in mind the peculiarities that the Earth observation data has, because this is not seen in other fields or other applications. And the first one is the multimodality of the data. So we are working with images, in this case, coming from multiple satellites, and these satellites have their own sensors. We have a hyperspectral sensor, we have radar, we have thermal, we have this multimodality, and it is not always obvious to work with this data. And the bulk of the research done in artificial intelligence is not concerned with this kind of data, because the big AI research companies, they mostly work with natural data, natural images or data, which is the one that everyone can produce with their phones or other sensors. So this is a challenge. Okay, I will show you later an example of why this is important, but this is in fact a challenge. This data is also geolocalized, so we know the coordinates of all our data, and this is a very powerful thing that, in my opinion, is not exploited enough in our sector. again, because it's not something that we have in other applications. So until we focus on and research on our own applications and stop using the things that are developed for other applications, then we cannot really take advantages of our data. In Earth observation, we are also normally working with time series or temporal data, not only one image, but a whole time series for a month, a season, or even a year. And this, in fact, probably needs big data. We have terabytes or even petabytes of data today, and there is a lot of data that is being created every day. So it is important to automate all this analysis, because it will not be possible to analyze all this data in real time if we don't have these algorithms. And everything in the end just results in high complexity for working with Earth observation data that we don't find in other sectors. So in the end, the three main limitations that I would encourage people to work more on is the generation of training datasets. For this, we are working together with the European Space Agency in the EOTDL project, which is a set of tools and also a repository of training datasets. So this is an open source project that you can get involved with. So you can go there, the website, and find all the information. Then also development of pre-trained models on Earth observation data. The way that artificial intelligence or neural networks works today is that we have big pre-trained models on a lot of unlabeled data, and then we take these models and fine-tune them for our own applications with some labeled data. But the problem is that these pre-trained models are pre-trained on the natural domain, and then this transfer to Earth observation is not always the best that it could. It works in practice, so that's fine, but it could be better, okay? And for that, we need to pre-train these models in a lot of unlabeled data, but Earth observation data. And then finally, since all this is this high complexity that I was mentioning before, it's very important to produce learning resources, and also challenges are very interesting in artificial intelligence for people to learn. And we as well are part of this project called AI for You, which is a challenges platform that, again, if you are students and are willing to learn more about AI applied to Earth observation, then you can go here. It's a great resource to practice and learn and share. Okay, this graph is just meant to show the progress on the training datasets, which is the main limitation that I was mentioning before. And as you can see, the trend is quite positive. So in the past years, more and more datasets are being produced, and bigger datasets. So this is good news. And yeah, we expect to see this trend continue growing. And here you can see a couple of examples of things that you don't normally see in other applications that, in my opinion, are very important. On the left, you can see an example of data fusion. Okay, so in this example, we are trying to classify these two images. On the left, we have Sentinel-2 image, and on the right, we have Sentinel-1. And in this case, since Sentinel-2 is affected by the clouds, we cannot detect what is beneath them, which in this case is just a water body. And on the other hand, on the radar, since we can see through these clouds, we can detect it. But on the other hand, it detects other things that are not present. So here the trick is to use both at the same time, okay? This is called data fusion. We use all the data that we have at our disposal instead of using the different modalities on their own. And in this case, we are able to get the classes correctly. And on the right, it's this graph to represent the amount of data that we need to train a model up to certain levels of accuracy. And here the important thing is to notice that the main takeaway is that if we pre-train our models with Earth observation data, we can obtain much better results when we have low labeled data, small data sets, which is often the case. And yeah, that's the main conclusion of this part. Another big trend that we're seeing today.
Juan, sorry, just a few seconds to close the presentation.
Yeah, okay. I just have 2 slides.
Okay, yes, please.
One big trend that we are seeing today is the emergence of language user interfaces, thanks to these big language models that are helping decrease the entry barriers for a lot of tasks that usually require some expertise or coding abilities. In this case, we are working on how to produce the different analytics that we are working on directly from natural language. Okay, so just type what you are interested in, and on the back end, this artificial intelligence will generate all the required code and the visualizations and send it back to you. And just to close, this is the last slide. Is I always like to put it here, is the main goal why we do this. Why is artificial intelligence important in Earth observation? And this is for the digital twin Earth. And this is a system you can imagine where we have all these sensors getting Earth observation data. And on the other hand, we have people asking things directly on this data, this information we care about. And in the middle, we have all these algorithms, all this artificial intelligence processing the data and delivering to the final user. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Juan. May I ask you to share again your presentation and go to the previous slide? And then I will share with you one question we received. So this is a very nice representation actually of how artificial intelligence and the use of space are connected. And we know also many projects related to digital twin Earth, the main one being the one from ESA. Let's keep this slide there, and I would like to transfer to you a question from David Igleson. He is a student in Cambridge University, and he asks you, how can we ensure reliability of artificial intelligence systems in their application to space? Are there any space-related tasks you think should be reserved for humans?
Yeah, this is a good question. Normally, to ensure the reliability of these algorithms, we have benchmarks. So there are some benchmarks on Earth observation data or space data, but it's not as established as in other domains. So that would be a very good thing to work more on standardized benchmarks that the industry and academia can agree on to test these models and make sure that they do what they are supposed to do.
Thank you very much. Another question from my side. Do you see, we heard a lot about what kind of skills are needed there, but do you see any concrete professions coming up from the combination of artificial intelligence and space?
Yes, for sure. I mean, there are all these limitations that I was talking about before, and uh, everyone interested in working in that, I'm sure that they will find their place in the industry. Maybe some important thing also I would like to share about this is that knowing about artificial intelligence and training models and so on, it's nice and important, but usually what I can see is most important is having also the software development full stack mindset, because it will help you a lot. So if you are trying to get into this industry and you are a student, I would encourage you to also work on your software development skills, front end, back end, artificial intelligence, data science, and so on. So if you have all this package, then it will be very, very good for you.
Okay, thank you, Juan, very much for your great presentation. And really, you shed light on many aspects on artificial intelligence that were unknown to us. Now, I would like to address a question to all speakers, and I will give you some time to think about the question. And then I would like to introduce Mr. Josep Colomé from Catalonia region. So at the moment, we heard about artificial intelligence, arts, and health, and how these sectors can be supported by the use of space. A significant aspect of this conversation would be to share with us, with the audience, what kind of challenges you had to overcome when you introduce the use of space in your work, in your sector, in your field of or in your field of studies. This would be the first question. And in this respect, I would also like to ask you, given that regions are key players in education training in Europe, what kind of activities they should involve to successfully implement a capacity building skills plan between the sector of space and other sectors. I will give you some time to think about this question, and then I will come back to you and hear your views. In the meantime, I would like to welcome Mr. Josep Colomé. He's from the Catalonia region, and he's also a member of the management board of Nereus. Thank you very much, Josep, for joining this webinar. We are honored. And based on the discussion and all the presentation you heard from the speakers and the experts, we would like to hear from you how the Catalan space strategy highlights the skills capacity building in the program, and also how space is linked with other sectors than the ones we already heard. And since you are a space expert as well, we are looking forward for your input.
Hello to everybody. I guess you can hear me. So I first should say that the honor is mine, obviously, to be able to share my opinion here today, and enjoying these previous presentations were amazing. And just briefly mentioning what is ongoing here in Catalonia. So we put in place what we call the new space strategy, and here. You have to imagine that we are calling this new space because we are launching nanosatellites, but mainly we want to work together with the digital sector, with many technologies that can help the exploitation of space data to extract information. And this seems to be a simple statement, but involves a lot of skills. So many skills that are needed to finally extract the information from that data in a useful way. So one of the activities that we identified in the new space strategy was working with kids using a space in order to create vocations, but that's a kind of a different topic. So that's a different area of the talent area in which we are working, but also we were willing to give the opportunity to many professionals to be trained into the space technologies at the level in which they can understand better what the space can provide and what the data coming from space can provide to the final user. And this is where this complexity is growing. And then there is a need to put different tools in place for these professionals in different sectors. We have been hearing about health and art and Earth observation applications using artificial intelligence, and in all of them, we are trying to work with these professionals, also coming from the private and the public sectors, and give the opportunity to be trained in what the space environment means, what kind of detectors should be launched with satellites according to the data that should help in the development of applications, and in the end, with the final mile, right, that's reach the final user, to understand how this data and this information can just fit into the application of the final user that is a skeptic on the origin of the data, but the final user needs to have something that is useful, cheaper also, and easy to manage. And with all of this, we need to put the needed skills and train in order to have this final user be identifying the space data as a useful tool to develop the applications, services, and products that are the base for the business, company, or public service that is given to the population. So this is where we are working with a new space strategy, trying to put these skills in place, basically to promote the use of Earth observation, navigation, and communication applications. That's one topic. But the other topic is how does cross-fertilization using other technologies could also benefit from this data exploitation. And here is where artificial intelligence comes. There is a strong ecosystem in Catalonia working on this, also on cybersecurity, on quantum communications, on 5G IoT communications too. So these are different kind of technologies that working together with professionals coming from the space sector can produce new solutions using a space and these other technologies in a better way. And finally, my final statement is that we signed the Pact for Skills of the Space for Geo application or proposal that is a European initiative that is coming at the European Year of Skills in order to promote this better exploitation of Earth observation data and GNSS services in order to maximize the impact on final users and the population in the end to benefit from these technologies. And we signed this Pact for Skills together with the Generalitat de Catalunya, the Catalan government, in order to support this activity as we believe that this is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph, for your valuable comments, and it gives a new perspective actually also to the discussion. Now I would like to welcome the audience to ask from the audience also to pose their questions in the chat. Novi is having some issues with her Wi-Fi, but she will be shortly with us. Then I would like to launch again the discussion on my previous question to the speakers. And that would be to remind also to the audience what challenges you had to overcome when you introduce the use of space in your work, in your sector. And that would be also quite interesting for our audience to hear about, because we have some students as well, and they might be interesting to follow something similar with you. So please, whoever would like to take first the floor.
If you want
Yes,
to
Anilor. Yes.
Okay. So it will. I will start.
Yes.
It was really, thank you all of you. I'm so pleased to hear all those wonderful projects. It's really very, very interesting for me as an artist. And what I want to tell you is that there is a lot of challenge when you come from an environment that's artistic and technical, because when you do monumental work, the technique is involved very much. But if you go into space, one of the most, I think, interesting challenge to share with people here is that you have to find a language. It's very important to find a way to go to, because it's different universe. With each of them, we have our own language. Not the artistic language is with the soul and the feelings.
Hi guys.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Please mute yourself so we can. Okay. Please.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
It's just that if when I started, for example, that the project, the engineers were asking me to explain in mathematical abscess ordonnée, graphs. And so I said, no, forget it. We're not going to do it like that. So, but we both, we all move from some step to each other. I'm very much interested in the way they're thinking and the word that really appeal to them. And by the time we find a way of all having the same language and speaking the same words, so that it's very clear that the creativity doesn't have to adapt to science and to space, which is important, because otherwise you put this on the moon and you say it's a piece of art, but it's the contrary. They moved to the art world to really respect all of the aspects and find technical and space solution to it. So I think we all have to gather again and to join our efforts in one scope together in the same direction. So finding a language, I think, is a common language is important.
And an important soft skill that you would need to develop
Yes.
as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the whole challenge. So you have to be prepared to be very flexible and to be very interested into space in general, understanding not how does it work, but having a real feel to share it with and sharing your word with it.
Thank you, Anilor. Juan?
Okay, so from our side, I don't know if you are aware of it, but artificial intelligence is very, very data hungry. So our main limitation is data, and accessing data, especially Earth observation data, is not easy. Okay. You can go to Google Images and find images about pretty much everything that you want. But when you want to access actual Earth observation data from some specific time range or area of interest, there is no such a thing. So even with the Sentinel data that is free, we can access it easily, let's say. But in the end, it's still the resolution can get you as far as it can get you. And if you want to go further and have applications with high resolution data, then you have to pay for it. You have to wait for it. It can be very expensive. So
Juan, in this aspect, may I ask you, the new generation of Sentinels will solve, I don't know if you have heard, but they will solve the issue with the resolution, they will improve the resolution?
Yeah, they will, but of course, we have to wait until that is operational, and
Yes, yes.
even when that happens, the clients will want more. It doesn't matter if you give a lot of resolution. They say, okay, but I want to have monitoring every hour or something like that. So it can be done. There are companies working towards this goal and launching constellations with very high resolution, very high revisit time. But accessing this data is quite difficult
The
right now.
challenge.
And you need this for training the models, and then you need the data after the models are trained to generate the information that you are interested in. So this is like the main challenge that we face, and that's why we are working on trying to alleviate this problem as much as possible, building tools and sharing them for creating data sets, and trying to train models that don't necessarily rely on very high resolution data. So trying to do as much as possible with the data that we have at our disposal. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Juan. Novi, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Maybe I can just connect an audio, and is that okay?
Yes, it's fine. It's fine.
So I think, that's first of all, thank you to the wonderful, wonderful speakers. I'm so happy to be on the same panel. I think the challenge, specifically in healthcare or for me in academia, has been that people assume since it's space, it's not down to earth, it's so complicated, so the image around it is very complicated. And one thing that helped in my case was to show tangible success stories of, okay, exactly like Juan's company, how they're using the Copernicus Sentinel data literally for fire or for any kind of drought or floods or any hazards. So if you show the tangible success stories, you can overcome some of that resistance is what I find. And even the belief, the other challenge is the belief that the costs around it to implement will be huge. So again, if you show examples of synergies, for example, sometimes spin-offs are not as expensive as expected. Many spin-offs from India, there's a lot of frugal innovation coming out of India. So again, showcasing these success stories can help, and also democratizing it. So I think at the regional level, to answer the second part of your question, with educators, schools, we can have cultural pop-ups. You can have cultural pop-ups in the market, like Anilor's beautiful art exhibition could be a pop-up somewhere. And also the kind of examples that Yusuf gave, perfect, those kind of courses, to have these kind of courses, not just in space related studies, but also, for example, in business. What can business learn from innovative space solutions? So I think such things encourage cross pollination. And we're not new to this, even to quote Albert Einstein, even he credits that his theory of relativity to somebody called David Humes, who was a Scottish philosopher who lived 1 century ago, because he said that by simply dabbling in another area, he opened up some mental channels about space and time not having to be a constant. So technically, anything that can encourage cross-pollination can overcome this kind of resistance or any challenges that come with space.
Actually.
Yeah.
No, we thank you for this insightful comment. Anilor, I see that you would like to compliment here.
But really, that's really interesting, because it's absolutely true, Novi. I totally agree with you. It's very interesting that when I work with so many different, between engineers and astrophysicists and experts, and they go outside of their comfort too, because they have to work on things that are not there every day, and together, I think by doing those challenges, they find also solutions. As I was telling you, with Nemesis technology, they were not in that area at all. They were in the medical and doing very tiny pieces in body. And by working together, it opened totally a new field for them of thinking to start, and a new application of their material they haven't think of. And now they do space activators. So you see, it's very true that you to cross when you cross different activities and thinking, you can go much further than when there is this American say that if the only thing you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So if you have much more tools, it's much more interesting.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. I love that. In fact, Anilor, I was thinking that many times we feel innovation happens outside the box, but so many times innovation happens by limiting the constraints of the box. Because with more constraints, you're forced to innovate frugally. And I'll just give one quick example. In Nepal, for example, some Stanford students had to go and they had to create an incubation machine for babies there. And incubation machines are very expensive, and they were only imported, and they were $2,000. So these students said, okay, what is the main feature that you need for incubation? It's warmth. And they created something at the price of 1/50th of the original incubation machine. All they created was a blanket. So because they had a limitation on the funds, they were able to innovate even more, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely, that's fascinating. As a to go further on this, when the all these people came originally to my studio, when I since I couldn't go to the moon as I normally go and see the site where I put a sculpture, to have more inspiration and finish the whole spirit of the sculpture with the elements. The nature there I couldn't go, so I so that was not a possibility. So I had people very kindly, they came to my studio to discuss their knowledge of the moon. And it's true that exactly what you're saying, Novi. The first thing that they were telling me were, okay, you know, they came to a factory, in fact, where I manufacture very heavy pieces. So it says, I see you are working on tons, but on the moon, we're thinking grams. And this is wonderful. It could have been a problem, but it was not. It was a new window opening to a whole new world. And there you have to think, not as obstacle, but new opportunity. And it's this, as you say, limitation in the weight gave me an opportunity to have a self-opening live sculpture that moves by itself on the moon, which is even more than that I wanted originally. And so that's exactly, as you said, limitation can be, it depends on how you feel the limitation. If it's
Absolutely.
just, you know, it has to open a window and say, okay, this is what I have now. How can I do something with that? And what does it open also? Because it closes a door, but it opens so many others.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Anilor. Juan, would you like to complement this interesting discussion or the path that it has taken?
No,
I know your
nothing to
region is
say
very
about
active.
that.
Catalonia region is also a Nereus member region. It's something I forgot to say in the beginning. And
Mhm.
Juan's company is based in Catalonia, and it's a really active region involved in many space activities. Maybe would you advise something from your side, from the SME space sector? uh, how the plan of capacity building skills can be more successful between space and other sectors?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's something that I already mentioned before, but for me, having a challenges platform is very, very interesting for skill capacity building. It's what I used a lot for learning, and I'm still using today for learning new things. So these platforms, if you don't know how they work,
Yes, maybe you can elaborate because I'm not aware of this
hmm,
personally.
these are just websites where companies can put their problems, okay? So they give the data, description of the problem, and then people can go there and propose their solution, okay? So you get the data, you can train an AI model, you can upload your solution, and based on that, you get ranked in a leaderboard. So by the end of the challenge, let's say 2-3 months, the ones on the top of the leaderboard get some prizes. That depends on the challenge. It can be monetary prizes, it can be internships in companies, but in the end, that's not the most interesting part, because along the way, you learn a lot. You also learn from others because people is sharing their code and what they think about the problem. The companies also gain because they get a solution from
Mhm.
for their problem, and
Yeah.
usually it's better than what they already had because you have a lot of more people working on it. So I would advise for the creation of such a challenges platform here in Catalonia, because I think it would be very interesting for all the companies, and also for all the students or even professionals that are already working on this field, and they want to learn more about artificial intelligence.
Thank you very much, Juan. I don't see any other questions from the audience. So maybe before we close, would you like to make a final comment based on your presentation, something you would like to add and you didn't have the time during your presentation?
I would just tell the audience to dare, just dare, just go and absolutely, this is the time. This
And
is
leave the
the time.
handprint.
Yeah, no, of course, because I'd love to have you with us. It will be great. But
Maybe you can share the link also, Anilor. I will share it in my follow-up, but you can also share it in the
okay,
chat.
yes, I will. Absolutely.
And you will be part of this very nice art project, Vite, from Anilor.
Yes, I think you
It's a
have
very
it.
easy procedure how to do
Yes.
it.
Absolutely, and we're doing a lot of events. If and you'll join us, and I'm going to learn much more. I'd love to know more about Novi and about Juan too, because that sounds interesting. I'm sure there is we can cross also there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And you are very much welcome to our webinars and to Nereus events. Um, okay, then I would like to close the webinar today, just to inform that our audience that this is the last webinar before the summer break, and we will resume in autumn. I will keep you updated of our next webinar. Finally, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all speakers. They dedicated much time and really dedication on the presentation, and we are all fascinated by your wonderful presentations. I would like to thank the audience for joining this webinar today. And if we don't see you, then we wish you a very nice summer break. And thank you very much. You will soon receive the follow-up of this webinar.
Thank you,
Thanks to all.
Margarita. Thank you all. Thank you, Margarita.
Thank you so much, Margarita.